Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is Straight Outta Boston, and today I'm back for episode number 11 of my Dallas Cowboys franchise here on Madden NFL 19. So, episode 11, I was originally planning to use to show weeks 1 and 2 of year number 2, but that footage actually got lost in translation. So, I'm just showing the box scores for those games. They were a pair of wins over the Chicago Bears and the Washington Redskins. We opened up the season with a revenge win over Chicago, the team that beat us in the playoffs last year. And it was a close game. We won 23-20. We kicked a late field goal to get the win, and it was pretty back and forth. It was a close game. It was the first game on a new slider set. I'm going to be using Flasco 21's sliders for this season, his all-pro set that I will link in the description of this video, so you guys can go check those out. And so far I'm very happy with just the overall competitiveness of the games, and I think that the statistics are a lot more realistic. Still Elliott running for 243 yards, as you can see in this game, but especially with Dak Prescott in the passing game, we are not quite as potent as we were last year, and I think that might be a reflection of some more competitive sliders, which will make for better gameplay. But anyway, those are how the first 2 weeks went. A couple of wins, and we have a week 3 game against New Orleans coming up to kick off this video. But a couple other storylines I wanted to hit on before we get to that are what the wide receiving core is looking like this year. So I ended up trading Terrence Williams, and Williams became the final cut off of my roster basically, and I just had a couple of receivers that I drafted in Jalen Smith and Kelvin Harmon, and also a guy that I signed in John Brown, all of whom I liked more basically than Williams. Williams had a bit of a higher cap figure because he'd already signed his extension before we started this franchise. It was around 6 or 7 million, and his ratings really just weren't that good anyway. So I was looking to trade him, and I ended up getting a 3rd-round pick back for him. I made the signing of J.D. McKissic to a 1-year non-guaranteed deal during week 1 of the preseason. He's going to be kind of our backup 3rd-down back. We have Travis Frederick back. He is back from that autoimmune disease he had last year, so he's going to be back as the starting center this year. And then we signed Terrence Brooks, a backup safety, and J.D. McKissic, a backup running back out of free agency. So that is going to do it for these week 1 and 2 storylines, and now let's get into the week 3 gameplay. And week 3 means the beginning of the phase where we can start to negotiate with our impending free agents, and you can see the list right here. A lot of big names, including Ezekiel Elliott, Sean Lee, Dak Prescott, Byron Jones, among others, and we are only allowed to negotiate with a couple of them at the beginning. One of them is Ezekiel Elliott, and I try right away to get him locked up because he's basically the foundation of everything we are as a team in this game. And here I'm getting the college scouting going for season number 2 as well. I'm writing down these prospects that pop up in the news. I mentioned this in the off-season video, I believe, but because I'm using the auto-generated EA Madden classes now, I look in the news section, write down the names of the players who are mentioned in those stories, just because they often can be, pretty good pickups in the draft, particularly, players who might be undervalued. They might drop in the draft for some reason that was mentioned in the news story, or for whatever reason. They're just often good players to look at, so I always try to make note of those, and I was writing them down in the little notepad that I used for the draft in the off-season, if you guys watched that video. But back to the Elliott contract discussions. It is kind of archaic and old school to build around a running back in 2018, but I kind of look at what the Los Angeles Rams do with Todd Gurley and how they basically run their entire passing game off of him. They set up play action and then kind of really set up Goff in good situations for him where he's going to have a lot of good matchups downfield. Like he might have a situation where the defense has to put 8 in the box, or they want to really design their defense around stopping Gurley and aren't, as keen on players like Brandon Cooks or Robert Woods, some of their good weapons that they have for Goff in the passing game. And that's really what I want to do with Prescott and the weapons that I'm trying to acquire on this team, as I've drafted guys like Jalen Smith and Kelvin Harmon. I brought in John Brown. I know I've moved on from Terrence Williams, but I'm really looking at trying to get the type of weapons that I want to surround Prescott with, and also having Caden Smith, the big receiving tight end who we snagged in the 3rd round. He's going to be a big weapon for us no matter who is at quarterback, but the quarterback is another free agent, and that is one that I'm not going to be quite so eager to lock Prescott up, just because I really do feel like Prescott and the production that he has brought to the table is pretty replaceable. I know he won the MVP last year, but I look at what he's doing this year, and the passing offense has just not been a strong point of the team, and that will play out over the next few weeks. It'll play out in this week, as this is a pretty tough matchup we have going up against the New Orleans Saints. They come into this game with 1 loss, and we are undefeated at 2-0 to start the year. But New Orleans is a team that made the playoffs last year. They're a team that beat us in the regular season last year too. We only had 4 losses in the regular season last year, but New Orleans was one of those losses. So they come in, they're not afraid to come to Dallas and play us. Of course, Drew Brees went to high school in Dallas, grew up in, or not in Dallas, but in Texas. Grew up in Texas, and he hits Josh Hill for the touchdown there. But Prescott, I'm waiting and seeing on Prescott because I do kind of want to see him and the passing game as a whole sort of produce with these young wide receivers. And if it doesn't, quite frankly, I'm not going to hesitate to go to Eric Dungy or the quarterback Jake Browning, who we got from Washington in the 6th round. Either of those guys that we drafted in the previous draft. I think, you know, if you look at the way that teams get built in the NFL now, the most valuable asset can often be a quarterback on a rookie contract, just because the quarterback contracts are so outrageous, and Prescott wants, you know, $25 million a year. So I think the most likely situation right now is Prescott. If we lose in the playoffs, if we underperform, and I really think this team should be a Super Bowl contender, should be getting to the Super Bowl at the very least, if not winning it in its current state. But if we fail to do that, then Prescott, he's a free agent. He might get franchise tagged and traded, or we might just let him walk, depending on if we want to use that franchise tag on someone else. But at the very least, we might franchise tag him and trade him, try to get an asset for him, and not just let a guy who's a pretty good quarterback and certainly someone who is of a good overall rating in this game. Don't want to let him walk for nothing. But despite that, I just think the value of having the quarterback on the rookie contract is too much to pass up, and we have a couple guys who we could do it with in Dungy and Jake Browning, and they both have the quick development package, which is pretty important for this conversation. But if things do turn around, if Prescott goes back to playing how he played last year at his MVP level, and he starts clicking with these young wide receivers, and we go deep in the playoffs and win, then it's going to be hard to not bring him back. If, you know, maybe we don't give him that extension, but maybe we do bring him back on the franchise tag, and, you know, if nothing else, wait for the narrative to shift a little bit, just because it would be so hard to move on from a quarterback after you win a Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens on that front, but I'm not committing to Prescott right away. And some of the other free agents, we have some guys on the defense that I definitely want to re-sign, like Byron Jones and Jalen Smith, 2 guys who are playmakers on our defense that I think has been a big part of why we've been so successful as a team through the first year plus in this franchise. So it's going to be an interesting free agency, and it's going to be an interesting year as a whole to see how we, you know, tackle some of the pending free agents and trying to deal with the long-term limited cap space that we will have. But this game has been pretty interesting as a whole. New Orleans, you see driving down the field there during the Super Sim in between moments, and they actually tack on a field goal here, get it back to a 9-point game. It's kind of been flipping between a 9 and a 6-point game for much of the 3rd and 4th quarter, and now it's a 2-score game at 9 points. So Dallas has a long road ahead of them, and this is a big 4th down. That's going to be incomplete. Prescott not finding Caden Smith there. So 4th down, turnover on downs, and this game is pretty much over. New Orleans would tack on one more field goal, and they would win by a final score of 28-16. The first loss for the Cowboys here in 2019. They fall to 2-1 on the season after picking up a couple of wins in the first 2 weeks. But New Orleans, for the 2nd straight year, coming into Dallas and quite frankly just outplaying us. They are a very talented team, and a team I definitely don't want to match up with in the playoffs, because they certainly have had our number the first couple of times we have faced off against them. But luckily they're not in our division or anything, and we're definitely fortunate for that. But looking at the defensive stats, it was Marshawn Lattimore forcing the only turnover in this game. And now we're at the post-game screen upgrading a few players. Our secondary, Awuzie and Byron Jones, 2 guys I'm hoping to keep around. We already are looking at re-signing Jones after this year, and Awuzie, I think he has 2 more years left before he is a free agent. But Randy Gregory is also a free agent this year. And Gregory is an interesting case because he is a speed rusher. He is pretty productive. As you see, we had the chance to bring Hearns back this week, but we decided not to. And Elliott, one more time. This time we get him to sign. It's a 6-year deal, so we're really committing to Elliott for the long haul. And now looking at are available for agents. We can only talk to Sean Lee and Prescott. Lee, I do want to bring back. As you can see, Prescott looking for, you know, upwards of 20-25 million bucks per year, and we can't quite negotiate with Smith or Allen Hurns or Byron Jones. But I think Gregory is an interesting case as we get into this game against Miami, because we have a similar type of player behind him on the depth chart in Taco Charlton, who I believe is 2 years younger, so he's on the rookie deal for 2 more years. But Gregory does have the superior ratings. He has a higher finesse moves rating. I think he might have a slight edge in strength, and he's also produced. I think he had 8 sacks last year for us, and he's put up similar numbers through the first few weeks of this season number 2. So that's kind of an interesting one. We have a lot of cap space. If we don't re-sign the quarterback, the Randy Gregorys of the world are the types of players who I think I would want to re-sign. Keep that extra depth at a position where guys do tend to get hurt. You know, an edge rusher, guys on the D-line and O-line are definitely subject to a lot of the injuries in this year's Madden. So it's good to have depth at both of those spots. As you can see, pretty nice throw from Prescott there, finding Jalen Smith for the touchdown, and the boys in the end zone getting after it with the celebration as we take a 7-0 lead in this game. But anyway, just kind of an interesting case. Gregory, you know, maybe if we don't bring Prescott back, he's the type of guy that would come back. But if Prescott does come back for even just a franchise tag, that would be a pretty expensive figure, and maybe that does push the Randy Gregorys of the world to other destinations, and we have to turn the, you know, our third down pass rusher spot to potentially to a Taco Charlton or someone else, a cheaper option. But anyway, getting into the gameplay a little bit for the first time this episode, Prescott's scrambling on third down, and he actually converts with his feet there for the first down, setting up first and goal. We hand it off to Elliott on the sweep play, and he ends up picking up a couple. Second and goal from the 4. Prescott dropping back, scrambling to his right once again, firing on the run this time, and I believe that was John Brown in the back of the end zone. So he pops open, makes it a 2-touchdown game as the Cowboys on top 17-3. Now, under 2 minutes to play in the second quarter. Prescott on third down, he gets sacked. So we're going to settle for the field goal here on 4th and 17. And Maher, he's got a 46-yard attempt, and it is good. That makes it a 17-point lead for Dallas. So pretty significant figure there, making it a 3-score game. And we maintain that 3-score lead into the third quarter. The defense playing very well against this Miami attack, as they came into this game only 74 overall rated team, so we expected to handle them, but still only 3 points on the board. We have to be satisfied with how the defense has played. That was a drop by Caden Smith that led to 4th down, so another field goal from Maher, who has been spot on all year, and we get a long rushing touchdown at the start of our next drive, as you see right there. That makes it 30-3. And we just control this game from pretty much beginning to end. As you can see, it's 30-6, and we're going to go one more play on offense here. 3rd and 8. Why not run it up? Jalen Smith, he is going to get down to the 11-yard line right there, and he gets the first down. Now the offense continuing down inside the red zone here in Miami territory. Prescott firing on the run. That actually was almost caught by Smith. He got his hands on it. It would fall incomplete. So another field goal for Maher, who, as I said, has been as good as we could have asked. And then we get an interception there. Byron Jones almost returning that one all the way. It led the offense back onto the field for one more touchdown, and we close out the 40-6 win. An absolute destruction of this Miami Dolphins team, and another big day for Ezekiel Elliott, who seems like a shoo-in to win MVP this year with how many 200-yard games he's having. And really the big thing for him is just going to be stay healthy. Can he stay healthy? He broke down at the end last year. Once he reached right around 400 carries, he had that ruptured disc, and we're going to be cognizant of that. I'm trying to limit his carries as much as I can during these games, but of course we want to play him. I mean, he is, you know, basically the entire offense. He's the center of the offense, and you know, he's the reason we win some of these games. So regardless, we have another matchup with an AFC East team coming up against the Buffalo Bills, and kind of another easy game, quite honestly. 2 AFC East teams back-to-back that are pretty weak entering both of those matchups. You see we had Byron Jones and Ezekiel Elliott win Defensive and Offensive Player of the Week, respectively, for this past week. And we've got a few more player upgrades, including Dak Prescott. You see his overall getting up there around 86. Lyle Collins, he's also a free agent at the end of the year. Not a guy I'm thinking I'm going to bring back, quite honestly. I think I'm going to try and draft a tackle to replace him because he's not that great. He has the quick development package, but he might be better to bring back as depth. I wouldn't be opposed to that, especially if we move on from Prescott and go cheap at quarterback. That is definitely the type of move we could do, bringing in a Lyle Collins just to be a backup. At tackle, he can also play guard, so that would be a pretty good move, I think. But anyway, we get into the game against the Buffalo Bills here, and Allen Hurns is back for this week. I was showing the depth chart briefly, but he is back, so that's going to mean less pressure on some of those younger wide receivers. We get to move Jalen Smith back to the slot and play Kelvin Harmon at that number 2 spot on the outside, with Ezekiel Elliott converting on the touchdown there early in the game, and then another turnover. This was actually by Prescott, so it sets up Buffalo in good field position, and it's Orleans Darkwa making some people miss, as that was a tough 6-yard run right there. 2 plays later, 3rd and 3, play action. Josh Allen scrambling, and he's going to be brought down. That is Randy Gregory, the man we talked about, picking up another sack, a big one on 3rd down there. That sends out the field goal unit for Buffalo. That kick is up and good, and they make it a 6-3 game here early on in this rematch of a couple of Super Bowls. Dallas facing off against Buffalo twice in the 1990s, and 13-6 now in the second quarter. That's Kelvin Harmon getting the ball on 3rd down. Now we skip ahead, 3rd and goal on the 2. 7:13 to play in the second quarter. Hand out to Elliott. He is stopped. 4th down coming up, and we are going to send the field goal unit out to make it a 10-score game. Kind of signaling that I'm relying on the defense to win this game. I'm not thinking, I'm not thinking about putting up as many points as possible. I'm thinking about making it a 2-score game, and knowing that my defense is, going to have a pretty good chance at stopping this Josh Allen-led Buffalo offense. But they did score 1 touchdown to make it 16-13. However, look at this deep throw by Dak Prescott. This was one of the more impressive throws I've seen from him in year number 2. He hits Kelvin Harmon. I don't even know what kind of route that was, but Harmon coming open against in the little pocket in that zone defense. But our defense not quite up to the task. They give up a field goal to Buffalo, so it's a 1-score game still, 23-16 late in this 3rd quarter. That's incomplete from Josh Allen on 3rd down. So Buffalo punts it away. We get the ball back. Going down the field a little bit here early into the 4th quarter, 3rd and 9 from the 46 on the Buffalo side of the field. Prescott nowhere to go, and he takes the sack from Jerry Hughes. So we would punt it away, and Buffalo getting the ball back, driving down the field with their passing game. You saw Allen converting on some big chunk plays. That was a run from Darkwa, but that was called back for holding. So 1st and 19, play action fake. Allen looking deep left side. That looked like it was hauled in. I think they ruled it incomplete anyway, but it's holding again. So 1st and 29 now, regardless of whether that was a catch. That's incomplete from Allen. Couple plays later now, 3rd and 29, 7 minutes left in this 4th quarter. Allen dropping back, looking for a screen play, but the screen's so ineffective. The halfback screens, at least, very ineffective in this year's Madden. And Allen feeling that right there. So 4th down, they send the field goal unit out, and that kick is just going to squeak in there. So make it a 4-point game, 23-19. Buffalo hanging tough in Dallas. Proving to be a tough test, and Prescott with a costly interception there. And this is what I'm talking about from Prescott. He has made some of these mistakes, not just when I've been making the decisions, playing as the, controlling him during the game, but even in the Super Sim, making some plays like that. Luckily, the defense up to the task. 3rd and 16 after a couple negative run plays. Allen just firing short here. That's incomplete. 4th and 16. They keep the offense out on the field. They have to go for it. They need a touchdown. It's Allen looking back of the end zone, and an impressive play by Jordan Lewis. Looked like Zay Jones popped open for a second at the back of the end zone, but Jordan Lewis had him all the way, and he gets his hands on the ball for the interception. Why not pick it off? But here we go. This one's obviously my bad. Prescott, an interception to Tre'Davious White. So Buffalo gets one more chance. But the defense has been up to the task all day, and that's not stopping here. Allen rolling out. Now he fires across his body. That was kind of dangerous, but it goes incomplete. 2 plays later, 3rd and 6. Allen looking short. Darkwa getting a couple yards there. Jalen Smith pushing him out of bounds. Buffalo going no huddle here. They have 2 timeouts left with the clock going under a minute. We're going to call timeout because I didn't like the matchups we had going with our defense out there. So 4th and 1. Play action fake. Allen, and he's intercepted again. Another interception. And this time, Awuzie is going to leave no doubt about it. He's going to return this one all the way, being chased by Orleans Darkwa, but he's not going to get him. And that is Awuzie returning that one all the way to the house for the pick six. And that is going to seal up the game. We would make it 31-19. 30-19 actually, excuse me, and that would be the final, a 30-19 win over Buffalo, who hung tough. Buffalo played us pretty tough. I do think Buffalo is well coached. I know they don't have a lot of talent in the roster by any means, but I've always thought Sean McDermott was a good coach. I thought he did a good job with them last year, and I think, you know, they beat Minnesota. That was a good win. I think Minnesota might be a little overrated, but I don't think Minnesota's bad by any means, and Buffalo went into Minnesota and beat them, one of the biggest upsets in NFL history by, you know, the point spreads. But anyway, I think Buffalo is a well-coached team, and, you know, if you want to go by that narrative, that might have played out in this game because they hung tough with us despite a 1-3 record. We are, 1-3, 1-4, I'm not sure, but we are 4-1 now, and we've got a big matchup with Philadelphia, the division-leading, undefeated Philadelphia Eagles coming up to kick off the next episode. So I hope you guys are excited for that. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'm out. Peace.